All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking today. It is Friday. It's a free-for-all. Yeah, I'm a little late, 4 minutes. I apologize. And to Chris, I saw you just asked me, when are you starting? And I'm like, oh, I am late. I'm so sorry. Well, you know what? Because I was scrambling to get all the slides together and all the news stories in the, prepared to share with you. And then I realized at about 11:58 that I hadn't done the research in terms of how many dead in Gaza. And that is what I always, begin my program. In fact, I'm going to go ahead. I know I got the hoodie on. It looks a little messy. I'll put my little keffiyeh back on from yesterday. I won't wear this every day, but at least for the next, I'm sort of proud of having gotten this. It was a gift from Nyreen, I believe, is the name, I think, or Nasreen. I'm sorry, Nasreen. So Nasreen, thank you so much. And Nasreen, if you're watching, give me a call, 242-242-5646. I told Nasreen about the program. So I'd love to talk to her if she wants to call in, or if anybody does. Again, free for all is your day. Not that they're not all your day, right? I mean, I'll take your calls anytime, but, pretty much whenever I'm in discussion, I'll interrupt it for your calls, because this program is a dialogue. It's about us together coming up with solutions. And you may completely disagree with proposed solutions that I share, and so I want to hear from you. I mean, the one thing that I really insist on is some measure of respect for each other. And I really, really, really try to model that. I don't always succeed. I know every now and then I lose it, or I get angry visibly. Maybe I talk over people. That's one of my flaws. I try not to do that. But again, what we're here for is a community-based dialogue designed to address the thorniest problems we face. And let's face it, the problems are so incredibly serious. They're absolutely existential at this point. There's no way to look at what we're doing to our planet, what we're doing to each other, without shuddering, without being appalled and scared for the future. And to be honest, I'm not, for myself, I'm older. My future's probably going to be pretty okay. But for people I care about, my family, and just for the life on the planet, that's what I'm really, all life. I say we're pro-life here at Halitics. Or as one of my listeners, or I guess not a real close listener, says, what is it? Halitics. Halitics? All right, 240-242-5646. Middle East Eye, the latest. This is Dateline today. You can see November 15, 43,764 is confirmed. And we always put in the caveat that's an understatement. That's clearly an understatement. We know that there are thousands and thousands who haven't been counted, and then there are others who have been identified as dead, but not necessarily because of not necessarily the death attributed to the Israeli military's actions, its genocidal campaign, its pogrom against the Palestinians in Gaza, and also now in the West Bank and Muslim and Christian communities and Druze communities in Lebanon. Israel is completely out of control. It's just, it's on a murderous rampage. 28 killed in the past 24 hours. That's Middle East Eye. And I'll give you the little, thing I put together, just kind of a thumbnail. So you can see it. I got to make sure I got the date right, too. I still have the 12th. It is actually the 14th. As of midnight, November 14, you have over 43,760 Gazans killed by Israel. I want to, not going to focus the program is going to be more about what I've discussed during the week. Your calls, hopefully, any comments. I'll check the chat right now. And also, I want to talk more about the picks, right? The picks by Trump for his cabinet. And maybe a lot of them aren't going to or a couple, there's talk that RFK Jr. for Health and Human Services may not be confirmed. Matt Gaetz apparently is very unpopular among his Republican colleagues, which to me sounds good, right? I mean, if the Republicans don't like him, he's probably doing something right, as far as I can tell. We'll get into that. But I just wanted to discuss very briefly, without even showing you the headline from the New York Times or the other media, the situation I guess it was over the weekend, was it, where there was a soccer match in Amsterdam between the Israeli team Maccabi and a Dutch team. And it was reported by the New York Times and other media that there was attacks, anti-Semitism reared its ugly head in Amsterdam, and various, I guess, Jew haters. They actually called it a Jew hunt in the streets of Amsterdam. And that just isn't what happened. The Maccabi fans, and I've seen this, is pro-Israel thugs. I mean, that's what they just are. They go into communities, they chant vicious. Apparently they were chanting, "There's no schools in Gaza because there's no children there." Like, they're bragging about the fact that they've eradicated the population, that they're killing children. That's what the fans there from Israel who visited Amsterdam were doing. They burned a Palestinian flag in the streets of Amsterdam. A lot of Muslims in Amsterdam. But even if there weren't, obviously you're a terrible, terrible guest. You're breaking. If that's not incitement to riot, I don't know what is. And apparently at some point, various Dutch community members, including Muslims, had had enough. They'd had enough of these incredibly unpleasant interlopers from Israel who were, instead of acting contrite, instead of being ashamed of what their country was doing, they were openly flaunting the murderous rampage that Israel is committing. And finally, there was enough, and they were beset by Dutch Palestinians and Dutch Muslims and Dutch people who just had enough of this. And it was presented as this horrible anti-Semitic pogrom, even though it had been catalyzed by incredibly provocative behavior, including violent behavior by these Israeli thugs who were beating people with sticks even. And there was no evidence that it was anti-Semitic. This is very important because we hear all the time. The ADL never stops telling us, and we know they're not reliable, they're not credible. The ADL never stops claiming that anti-Semitism is on the rise, that Jews are never safe. In fact, the Jewish community in Amsterdam did not suffer any attacks. There was no targeting of Jewish Dutch, and there are Dutch Jews. Not all the Jews were murdered by the Nazis, and then there have been Jews who settled in the Netherlands post-World War II. But as bad as it was, and certainly many, many Dutch Jews were murdered, I think maybe 40% of the pre-war Dutch population survived the Holocaust. It was a country that didn't undergo quite as, wasn't completely or almost completely destroyed the way the Polish and Ukrainian, Hungarian, Eastern European, German countries saw their Jewish populations virtually eliminated completely. So there are Jews in the Netherlands. They were not targeted. They were not attacked. If you had a kosher butcher, for example, you were not going to be attacked. It was the pro-Israel, the Zionists, who were ultimately beset by some in Amsterdam after they had engaged in remarkably provocative, obnoxious, and violent behavior. That's not the story the New York Times told you to begin with. The narrative was Jews are unsafe, Jews are being targeted. And then when it became clear that it was the opposite, was closer to the truth, much as what we've seen on college campuses. Despite all the claims by these snowflakes that they can't walk across campus without being, feeling unsafe, right? That's always the thing. I feel unsafe. I feel unsafe. I see people burning an Israeli flag, or they're criticizing, they're saying Israel doesn't deserve to exist, or from the river to the sea. That triggers people somehow. And that's determined to be anti-Semitism. But when you examine, when you investigate what's really happening on college campuses, the violence is almost invariably begun by Zionist thugs, often from off campus, sometimes from on. And they're given, almost a blank check by the police, who may have been trained in Israel or received training from an Israeli or a contractor with the Israeli government. So that's kind of where we are. We're in a country that, in many ways, is being controlled by Israel, and it's terrifying and it's wrong. I don't expect that to change much, if at all, under Trump. I know some people are saying it's going to get worse. It could get worse. I'm not sure it will. I don't know that we have reason to believe that, but it's bad right now, and we know that Biden and Harris are doing nothing to stop the killing by Israel, right? I mean, they had an opportunity this week, and they didn't take it. So to me, that should put paid to any arguments, which I hear all the time. Well, you say you care about Palestine, but then you vote for Trump, right? And I'm like, no, I never voted for Trump. No. Well, you might as well have, right? That's the argument. Harris would do better. She would be better. Well, obviously we know that's a complete lie. That's just false. And you'd think people would get it, but they still don't. Okay. You can communicate with me at Halitics. Also, that's to Emogi, who was asking about how to communicate with me. I'm looking at the chat, but the best place really is just to post at Halitics on Facebook, but also I'm on X at Hal Ginsberg, which I also put in the show description. So there's a link to the X as well. So that's another place you can reach me if you want. I don't usually use X as much. I only have limited bandwidth, but I do the best I can. All right, I asked this question. Is Trump's cabinet, so far, we don't have all of them nominees, is it worse, right? That was the question. And I got this response. This is actually a response I appreciate, by the way, very much. I never out anybody, but this is certainly a friend of the program who posted this, somebody I care about. And they provide the answer to that question from yesterday's was it yesterday's? I guess is the cabinet even worse? So here is one answer. Yes, in all caps. So is it worse, though? I mean, see, this is something I really ask you to do. Put away the partisanship. Put away the certitude that you have, because the narrative has been for 8 years that Donald Trump is the spawn of Satan. And some of the things he's done are really bad. I never will excuse, forgive, pardon, whatever word I can do. I mean, I don't have any power. I don't pardon anybody. But in my mind, I cannot pardon the treatment of immigrants. You separated children. You separated little children from their parents. That's what he did. He really did put children in cages, and I understand that policy was something that, Hillary and Obama had kind of cooked up, or probably it predates them, and they were not, they were breaking families up too, and they were sending parents back cross the border and leaving the kids in the United States. I heard that a lot from the pro-Trumpers. Well, what about Obama? He was really bad too. Hillary supported that policy too. They were bad. Trump was worse. And even if he wasn't, which he was, it doesn't excuse what Trump did. So there's that. And then there's also the drone policy, which, again, Obama vastly increased. It started under W, as far as I know, but that's where the remote control killing, right? Kind of the antiseptic war, antiseptic for everyone except the people we kill, including many civilians in, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, and creating many, many more America haters because they hate us when we kill them, which, surprise, surprise. Trump, without much fanfare, increased that program significantly. So those are really bad things that Donald Trump did, and there's no excuse for them. But that said, Democrats do really bad things too, and there's no excuse for what they do. So I urge you to put away your partisanship in the sense that because, Donald Trump has been demonized by the media incessantly, or at least the media that you may consume, the New York Times, whatever, CNN, MSNBC, because, Rachel Maddow doesn't like Donald Trump, he must be a really bad person. And not only is he a bad person, but every single thing he does is horrible. That has you to put that aside. That doesn't help us move forward. Instead, we look at the data. We look at the facts. So is the Trump cabinet really worse? So let's, and I made the point that I think on foreign policy, as bad as those, the ambassadors, right? They don't have that much power. The ambassador to the UN, Elise Stefanik, she's terrible. Don't like her. She represents the country badly. She's an embarrassment. But again, UN ambassador doesn't have a lot of power. The ambassador to Israel, Huckabee, terrible guy, back in 2017, a long time ago, said, hey, I'm going to use Israeli language. The Palestinians people don't even exist. It's Judea and Samaria, right? That kind of crap that feeds in pro-genocide rhetoric. No question about it. It's terrible. But if you look at other foreign policy choices, they clearly aren't so bad. So you look at Tulsi, and she has been, attacked by the New York Times as some sort of a Russian plant. Well, that's a good thing. We want peace with Russia. We want to end this horrible war. It doesn't mean we give Russia everything it wants. We just want the Ukraine carnage to end. And Tulsi will probably push for that in defense as National Intelligence Director. I'm sorry, let me get that right. And then Rubio, he's a neocon, but he has shown a little bit of willingness to adopt a less bellicose attitude towards Russia, voting against authorization of funds to Ukraine earlier this year. And Hegseth, is that his name? Pete Hegseth, I believe, if I got that right, the Fox guy. He has spoken out repeatedly against endless war with Russia. So I give, a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. So let's compare. Worse, Biden cabinet picks, right? We're trying to compare. And, part of the argument against me has been you could never, ever vote for Jill Stein because you're basically just voting for Trump. And Trump is just a completely different level of bad than poor Kamala, who also you probably don't like because she's a black woman, and you hold against her things that Biden did, which she had no control over. Well, maybe that's true. I don't know. Probably there's some tiny little bit of truth to that. But she brought it on herself by insisting that she was in the room when the Biden decisions were made. She agreed with all of them. All right. Biden cabinet picks worked alongside influential lobbyists at private equity firm. Wow. Look at that headline. That's 2020. So really, are Trump's choices clearly worse? We're talking about foreign policy, right? Incredibly important. I don't think it gets the, we're destroying our country through endless war, and we're destroying our soul through our support of the Israeli genocide. So let's look at the picks. Let's look at the Biden cabinet pick for just a minute, the picks there. So see if I got this right, because I got this little bit smushed. So I want to just give you the heading here. This is from, is it Open Secrets? Very credible, very reliable, I think. I'm a big believer in Open Secrets. They seem to really get it right. So here we go. 2 of Biden's cabinet nominees worked with Washington lobbyists at a private equity firm that touted its access, network, and expertise in the defense industry. So Lloyd Austin, who has been a complete mouthpiece for the Ukraine war, he's done nothing to speak out against our support for the genocidal Jewish state. He worked with Antony Blinken for this Capital Partners Group, which specialized in defense companies. They lobbied. Their firm was paid by the Raytheons of the world, the Lockheed Martins. That's who paid them. And now they're actually still exercising great influence. So defense industry lobbyists are in the cabinet right now, exercising great influence over the Biden administration's activities. So are you so sure? Can you state with such definitive certitude that Biden's cabinet was better? I don't know. I'm not going to say that. I wouldn't say that. I think the evidence is pretty equivocal at best. We see these memes. This is in this group, I'm an Activist Democrats. So again, the goal is not to try to understand people who may have a different political viewpoint. The goal is not to try to come to solutions. It's just to shame people. And I've been saying this, I remember getting to this back in 2016 in a group I was in called, you can look at it, dagblog.com. They're still there, not very active. They kind of they drove me off. I was really just attacked by many of the posters there repeatedly. They did not like my pro-Bernie position. They did not like my criticism of Secretary Clinton. I think subsequent events have clearly vindicated the positions that I took, but there were a pretty solid number of neocons in there too. All right, 240-242-5646, 240-242-5646. Yeah, from Emogi. Real quick, because I am trying to also center the chat when I can. Gates, Tulsi, and Kennedy have anti-war establishment ideas worth encouraging. 100%, we're going to get to that in a little bit. I just want to say this, though. The idea, you say, oh, well, I wanted cheaper eggs. It's just so stupid to say something like that. Okay, it's so stupid in so many different ways. Tens of millions, maybe 100+ million Americans are struggling. They're having challenges paying the rent. I think over half, I saw this stat, it's been a while, but I don't know how much it's changed. Many more than half of us have less than $10,000 savings. That's a lot more serious than wanting cheaper eggs. The number of homeless Americans is the highest it's ever been. To argue, to diminish that, to minimize the poverty or the near poverty that so many are experiencing, and the desperation that many others are fear, the desperation that's that they feel because they're afraid that something bad could happen to them. They know people. They know that they're one medical emergency away from perhaps bankruptcy. People living on credit card, off their credit cards. I was talking to a friend of this program. They're living off their credit card. So why would you ever try to mock people like that? Oh, and they don't love their daughters? That's the argument? It's just crazy talk. It's how you lose election after election. And that condescension, that arrogance. So this put me in mind. I attended on Zoom yesterday a lecture about Haiti and how Haiti's imploded. And, now there are these gangs that pretty much run the country. And the gangs are very bad in many ways, and there's lawlessness. But in some ways, they are replacing a failed government that could not take care of the citizens, could not protect the citizens, protect them from the gangs. Sometimes the gangs themselves were employed by the government to maintain order. But Henry, I think Henri, the latest president, lost the confidence of the West, the United States, Canada, other countries that basically lorded over Kenya. And he left the country, tried to go back, couldn't come back. So this is a country that the West has looted for well over 200 years. Actually, Haiti's in the West, right? So it's the Western Hemisphere. But the North, the global North, has looted and destroyed. And so, I was thinking, though, this whole argument about if you care about your daughter, how could you sell them for 50-cent carton of eggs? And I was thinking, okay, so there's a woman who ran for president 8 years ago, and you see her in this sweatshop in Haiti, where she did her damnedest to prevent those women. You can see all those women. They're somebody's daughter, right, with the yellow hats on their head in that sweatshop. It looks like a miserable environment. There's other pictures that are worse. They're making about 30 cents an hour. And Hillary fought successfully to keep that salary, 30 cents an hour. Maybe your daughter is a seamstress. Maybe your daughter likes to sew. She's talented. She's a skill that way. Well, guess what? Working in this country, in the textile industry, is extraordinarily underpaid, if you can even get a job. And one reason for that, because the labor overseas is so incredibly cheap. If you're Hanes, if you're Levi's, who were behind the fight against a hike in the minimum wage, if you're, they are the ones who stopped it. If you're Hanes or Levi's, you pay people. Now I think it finally did get raised, but this was in 2010. So you're still paying those workers, those women, those human beings, $1 a day or less, $1 an hour or less, maybe $5 to $8, maybe it's up to $10 a day now. That's what they're making. Well, if that's what you can get away with paying people, why would you hire anyone in the United States? So you have to pay more in 1 hour, and then you pay these ladies in a day. And you can thank Hillary Clinton. So if you care about women, if you care about your daughters, did you vote for Hillary Clinton? Because I don't know how you could have. I don't know how you could look at what she did as Secretary of State and think that's good for your daughters. Did you vote for Kamala? Are you so insistent she's... What about all those women and girls that her policies have killed in Gaza? And in Ukraine as well. So this attitude, this condescension, this arrogance is so destabilized, so destructive to our having any kind of real political discourse. Seems like we can't have one. I want to talk just a little bit more about Haiti because, again, it goes to this issue, not so much, I don't believe, we're not going back. I don't really want to do a post-mortem. You all get sick of it, and we've already gone over it, why the election was lost. But it goes to that question, will Trump really be worse? Is his cabinet going to be worse? What lessons can we learn? So what the Harris-Biden administration have been pushing is for lately, and what's happened is Kenya has deployed paramilitary troops, police, into Haiti to try to stop the gang violence there, which is terrible. You saw this article. This is from a Haitian there. Dudu Pierre Festil is a Haitian. I'm not sure if the co-writer Micheline Yolanda Aduel is, but I would assume she is. But what they're saying is, and I've heard this from other Haitians, this is not helpful. Sending in military units or paramilitary units from another country isn't helping us. You want to help us, let us be free. Let us make our own decisions. Don't lord it over us. Yes, the gang violence is terrible. There may be ways we can work together. Don't just send in foreign military units. And that's exactly the solution. The solution that the Haitians are saying we don't want, that isn't going to help. It's only going to continue the colonization of Haiti. That's exactly the solution that the Harris-Biden administration has been pushing for. You can see that article was in 24. This is in 23, as the situation in Haiti was spiraling out of control. No matter how well-intentioned, our mission in Haiti is a mistake designed to prevent Haiti from ever gaining any self-determination, any freedom whatsoever. So I want to play this clip real quick. I'm going to get to all of the discussion. I promise you, I'm not going to short shrift focusing on. If I have to go over the hour, I'll absolutely do it. But that discussion about Haiti and just how bad the U.S. government's actions have been, how much they've harmed, especially the Clintons take much of the blame. I also just want to note the speaker that I heard, Erica Keynes, we talked afterwards. I mean, she had a Q&A session, and I asked her, I said, is there reason to think the Democrats are less awful than the Republicans, or do we need to go to a third party, a fourth party, an alternative, a rising alternative to the Democrats? And she's like, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. We can't, what the Democrats have done to Haiti is criminal. Just like what they're doing to Gaza is criminal. All right, here's Jemima Pierre speaking about this a couple of years ago.
From very early on, the U.S. has sought the help of other regional partners for its upcoming planned invasion in Haiti. Once turned down by Brazil, by Canada, and by Mexico, it turned its attention to the leaders of CARICOM. In early 2023, despite pressure from US and Canada, CARICOM, under the leadership of Prime Minister of Bahamas, Philip Davis, refused to agree to send police and military force for an invasion of Haiti. But by summer 2023, CARICOM had reversed course, caving in to pressure from the US and its minions, including the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and members of the core group.
So the U.S. is pushing Caribbean countries to intervene in Haiti, to send troops into Haiti. And they're saying, the Bahamas and others, this isn't a good idea. This will only exacerbate the situation. This will only cause more destruction, more death, prolong the country's agony. And the U.S. didn't like it, pushed them. And finally, there was an agreement, although the country still, like other countries in the Caribbean, just were not going to send their own troops in. So let's hear a little more from Jemima about what happened.
This about-face came during CARICOM's Head of Government Conference in July 2023, which also marked the 50th anniversary of the organization. The meeting was attended by U.S. officials, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, and among others, African-American Congressman Hakeem Jeffries.
Okay, so what a trifecta there. Three of my favorites. You've heard me criticize them all the time. Those three, neocons to the core, Kamala, Hakeem Jeffries, the congressman from Wall Street and AIPAC, and Anthony Blinken, the lobbyist turned Secretary of State, the defense industry lobbyist turned Secretary of State, all go to CARICOM and say, we got to intervene. We got to send troops. There's no one from Haiti at CARICOM, by the way, but we got to send in troops. And you got to send them because we don't want to have all these white soldiers there. Don't look good. White soldiers killing black people. Let's have the black soldiers from your countries go in.
Before, in June, Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly hosted a meeting on Haiti with Caribbean countries and various UN agencies about the security situation in Haiti, with no Haitian present, of course. Thus, by the end of the CARICOM conference in the summer of 2023, the member states issued a statement in support of a US-orchestrated military invasion of Haiti. Like Kenya, the CARICOM countries have been promised robust packages of aid and security assistance for their service to empire.
All right, I'll stop it there. So basically what Harris, what Hakeem Jeffries, what Antony Blinken did in service, I guess, if you want to call it that, to the Biden administration was pay off Kenya to send its troops in to, I guess, clash with the gangs, cause more dissension, more trouble, and try to return to a status quo where the U.S. State Department, where Canada and others control Haiti, where the U.S. State Department determines the minimum wage as demanded by, as preferred by U.S. multinational corporations. So the argument that yes, Biden cabinet is better, it runs up against these realities. No, the Biden cabinet was awful. By the way, just want to comment on what Shade has to say. We were referring to the price of eggs, right? And that, this way to shame Trump voters that they don't care. They sold their daughters for a carton of eggs. The response is that the bird flu and standards for the eggs caused the price to go up. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to assume that's true. But inflation is a problem, and I'm a big believer that as a society we consume far too much. We need to rein in our consumption patterns, but the way you do that is you guarantee all have enough and none have too much. We have to take from the billionaire class. We have to redistribute wealth and influence and power downward. And by the way, people wouldn't feel the need, the compulsion, the psychological urge to consume as much as we do if there wasn't all the, if we didn't see around us this glittery, gaudy display, this lavish display of extraordinary wealth that's constantly in our faces on TV. People see it on, the car, someone driving by in a really, really expensive vehicle. That's part of the problem. We're all being pushed to over-consume, to hyper-consume. But if you, again, reduce those wealth and income disparities, in fact, under Biden and Harris, they got worse. Inequality has grown. But if you reduce those wealth and income disparities, you also reduce the, at least the cognitive pain, the psychological pain of having much less than others. All right, 240-242-5646. I want to move on, but we're going to stay on the same basic topic. I'm going to leave the Caribbean. If you want to join me, or Caribbean, right? There's a song Caribbean Queen. I've heard it called Caribbean. I don't know. I guess it's like Halitics. I love that Halitics. I'm sorry, folks. I'm going to just kind of say on that. So how bad are the Trump picks? And I mentioned Gates and Hegseth yesterday, but I did not get into this, and I really think it's important. How bad are they? Because the Gates pick especially has gotten a lot of laughter online. I actually think the Hegseth pick in some way. I'm not going to get. They're Trump's crony. They're people who supported Trump. In the end, what matters, and I don't know why this is so hard for people, but it really is. What matters is their policies. Will they or won't they pursue pro-worker, pro-peace, pro-environment policies? And they almost certainly won't in toto, but then neither did Biden's. That's why we need another party, because both parties are pro-billionaire class. But are they going to be demonstrably worse than Biden's? I'm not so clear on that. Now, the climate crisis, one of my big issues, and it should be, that was the thing, what was we're saying something like, if you care about, people would say, if you care about Palestine, then how could you possibly vote for Trump? I mean, how could you possibly vote for Stein? You might as well vote for Trump. And my question is, why wouldn't you care? You say to me, Hal, if you care about Palestine, why don't you care about Palestine? And yet people don't seem to care. I cannot understand it. People also don't seem to care about this. Global surface temperatures, this is from Clean Technica. So global, it's not just that we're hotter than we've been in probably several 100,000 years, but the temperatures are rising faster than scientists can document in over 485 million years. It's extraordinary. That's what humans are doing because we keep putting that carbon dioxide, we're taking the carbon out of the ground and putting it we're burning it and we're putting it in the atmosphere. That's why. Just that simple. We're putting a heavier and heavier blanket around the earth. So this is a really important issue. So where do these important picks, Justice Department, Department of Defense, where do they fall when it comes to this issue? What are their views? So let's start with the military guy. And it's really important. People say, who cares? It's the military. No, it's really important. The Pentagon is one of the biggest consumers of fossil fuels around, one of the biggest generators of greenhouse gas emissions. And the Pentagon, the military, has also been in some ways in the forefront of educating the public about this crisis because the melting Arctic has been deemed a massive threat, a national security risk, right? It increases our risk. So the Pentagon has in some ways educated us as to the dangers of the climate catastrophe, the human caused, and it's also certainly contributed to that problem. So what does Pete Hegseth have to say? Well, he believes it's a vast left-wing conspiracy. I don't know that Lloyd Austin has ever said what his view is. He's not the secretary. This is Department of Defense, right? Secretary of State is Marco, so we'll leave him out. I think Lloyd Austin, right, is the guy that Hegseth would replace as defense secretary. So he describes climate research as a vast left-wing conspiracy. I don't think, as far as I know, General Austin has never said that. And what Politico says, and I completely agree with this, Politico doing really good work here, if Hegseth's comments translate into downplaying the role of climate science, it could be bad news for the nation's defense system. It's true. It puts us at greater risk. But another problem with doing that is we're all at risk. This is wreaking havoc already. People are dying by the scores in droves because of the climate catastrophe. So it's not just, it makes us less safe from a defense standpoint. It makes us less safe as a species. It means there's going to be more, extinctions. It means the ecological web that we depend upon for our livelihoods, for our lives, is going to continue to unravel. So this is really, really bad. Now, I want to just make a point about this. Trump, I believe, has called climate crisis a hoax. I don't know if he's gone quite that far, but he may have. He certainly has argued we shouldn't, give a crap about it. But if the policies of his administration reduce consumption, then in the end, that's all that matters. Because what's driving the climate crisis isn't that people don't believe there's a climate crisis. What's driving the climate holocaust isn't that people don't believe that burning fossil fuels is causing our planet to heat up dangerously. What's driving is that we're burning fossil fuels. It's just that simple. What you believe or don't believe really doesn't matter. It's what you do. I mean, it does matter because presumably you'll act in a way consistent with your beliefs, but then do we? Have we? The Biden administration sure hasn't. Hegseth has spoken out against our adventurism in Ukraine, the proxy war. Hey, if the war is ended, that's a major driver of the climate catastrophe. So if we stop being so bellicose, if we reduce our empire footprint, then that's good for that is a net positive for the environment. You got to balance all these things out. We'll get something here. So this is Gates on the environment. We'll do a lot more about Gates, but I hadn't quite finished with Hegseth. But let's just we'll get to the comparison with Biden. That's where I really want to go. By the way, I can hear the ringer. So if anyone calls me, 240-242-5646. We got the usual suspects in the chat, my 3 most loyal chatters. Love to see more folks in there too if you want to join. I saw one of my good friends up there in, I think it's Frederick County, who was asking about the show. So I hope you're watching, and you can call me too, 240-242-5646. So Gates is not a denier. Gates is part of the reality-based community. Gates has said it's real. There is clearly, he doesn't deny that it's getting warmer. To me, that's not enough. You've got to say it's getting warmer because of human activity. But he does go far enough, at least according to Ariana Scribble in Politico, he does say, hey, we have to do something about it. And he said back in 2017, a long time ago, but remember, we're tarring, and I think rightly so, Huckabee for his provocative, his aggressive anti-Palestine comments from 2017. So I'm willing to give Gates some credit for saying back in 2017, I think history will judge very harshly those who are climate deniers. But he's also introduced legislation to abolish the EPA, voiced opposition to climate rules, and called the Green New Deal resolution a socialist takeover. So there's a mixed bag. And I'm especially troubled by the decision, him trying to abolish the EPA. We need the EPA. It's critically important to have government agencies there to make rules, to to crack down on polluters, to refer climate criminals to the Justice Department, which is where Gates will be working if he gets confirmed. So these aren't all great, but that said, it could be worse. He could be a denier altogether. And there are some areas where actually Gates isn't bad at all. We'll get to those in just a moment, but I told you I will always take your calls if you call. We have a caller. Good afternoon, caller. Who do I have? Or maybe it's morning where you are. I don't know.
It's Chris.
Hey, go ahead. What's up? What's on your mind? Oh, I guess they're not.
Hi, Hal. It's Chris.
Oh, Chris, good to hear from you. How are you? Yes, you did ask when I was starting. Is that because I was late? Were you like, wait, you're supposed to be on and you're not? Was that why you put that in the question mark there? We have a bad connection, Chris. I'm sorry. I'm really having trouble. There's a lot of delay there.
I've been watching you, okay, and I don't know what time you come on live, but do you want me to call you back?
Yeah, it seems like the connection's terrible. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to assume it's on your end, so I will hang up on you. But yeah, call back. And I'll just tell folks, the reason I assume it's on his end is because generally I haven't had any trouble with the calls when they come in. Now, there's been a problem getting it to ring, but once there's a connection, there hasn't been a problem. So I'm going to assume there was some issue there. All right, 240-242-5646. I think Chris is going to call right back, hopefully. So there he is. Yeah, that is Chris. Hey, Chris, welcome back. I hope this works a little bit better.
Yep. Yes.
What's on your mind?
Yes, I hope so too.
Hey, do me a favor. Listen through your phone, not through your computer, because there's a delay when you listen through the computer.
Okay.
So, are you on your phone? Do you hear me through your phone?
I'm on my phone.
Excellent. What's on your mind, my friend?
Well, just so you know, I don't live in Frederick anymore. I moved out to Bethany Beach. I became a beach bum.
How nice. It's nice out there. Do you like this time of year better when there aren't all the crowds and all the tourists and all that?
Yes, this place is deserted right now. Okay. And you can get a dinner reservation. You don't have to get a dinner reservation. You can just walk in. It's very nice. And it's very nice out here from now until next May. It's very pleasant to live out here.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I'm jealous. Well, the beach is nice, right? I mean, it's real pleasant. So I'm glad you fell into such a nice spot. That's wonderful, Chris. Congratulations on that.
With you that I read in it's called the Democratic Underground. Okay, and you know, it's online, but it was a very interesting. And it was just a comment from somebody that said that with Gates, that the Democrats aren't going to oppose him. They're going to let him go, and that they're tired of cleaning up the MAGA messes that these people are making. And I just thought I'd share that with you and see what your reaction is.
Well, I was going to say, I hope the Democrats don't block Gates if they have the ability to do so. I think that there's a real chance that a number of Republicans would vote against Gates for a variety of different reasons. I don't think the likelihood is that there would be a better choice from Trump. I think Gates is about as good as it's going to get. And I also think that if the Democrats don't block Gates, it gives them an opportunity to have a little bit of leverage, because after all, they would be the reason, assuming there's like 5 or 6 Republicans who vote no, if, you know, Bernie and some of the other progressives in the Senate, Jeff Merkley comes to mind. I know Ed Markey, I think, said he was going to vote against Gates, which I'm sorry he did that. But I think that the Democrats should try to work with Trump where they can. I think Trump is a narcissist. Trump responds well to flattery. Trump responds well when people say positive things to him. So I think if you had a liberal contingent or progressive contingent of senators who said, Chris Van Hollen, hey, we can work with this guy, we'll save his nomination, I think that would be a good thing, Chris, honestly.
And I sort of agree with you on all the environmental things. This is going to really set us back for a while. But just generally, I think the business community, a lot of the business community has got a lot of money invested in a lot of environmental things. And that's not going to go away. They're going to keep going with those things. But I think it's going to really set us back.
Well, I mean, let me just say before I got a response to that, Chris, I want to hear what you have to say. But, you know, again, one of the aspects of Gates' record that is kind of good is he has been critical of big tech. He's been critical of consolidation. He has spoken highly of the FTC chair, Lena Khan. I thought that's interesting. I thought she was antitrust, but I guess it's Federal Trade Commission chair. So I got that completely wrong. I thought she was antitrust. But either way, Khan is someone I want to have stay on in this administration. And having Gates backing her is a real positive. So this is another area where politics may make strange bedfellows, but Gates really isn't all that bad compared to other Republicans. And in fact, she has taken on big tech, and she has called for lower drug prices, for example, and Gates is fine with that.
Okay. Well, those are the only 2 things I was going to share with you. I'm looking around. My son recommended a book about the Palestinians, but I can't find it. And when I do, I'll call you back in the next day or 2 and share it with you, because it's the history of the Palestinians. And I thought, but I don't have it with me right now.
That's awesome, Chris. I really appreciate your taking the time to call. You found me, obviously, and I appreciate that. I'll be back Monday, take off the weekend, of course, but enjoy your weekend as well. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. So there's Chris calling from lovely Bethany Beach, Maryland. 240-242-5646. The issue of whether we'll be set back, this is, I want to say a couple quick things before. Let me just go back to what Gates was saying. Why did I think Lena Khan? I thought she was antitrust. Why do I think FTC? Yeah, but she's not. She's Commissioner to U.S. Federal Trade Commission. I'm really sorry. Well, hey, my wife once said to me, because I was complaining about myself, I said, hey, I'm getting a lot wrong. Well, see, she enforces the nation's antitrust and consumer protection laws, but for prosecutions, then it goes to the antitrust division. So I guess that she must work closely with the antitrust division. But I hope she stays on. That would be a good thing if she stays on. 240-242-5646. 240-242-5646. Great to hear from Chris. And by the way, don't forget, click like, click subscribe. Click like, click subscribe. I just wanted to point up a little bit more of Gates' thinking, because I really don't have the EPA is really important. But he also says something that I kind of can live with. And this is not, again, I'm not making excuses for the guy. And I understand there's a lot of, questions about his behavior, and has he engaged in inappropriate sexual activities with girls. And, he hasn't been convicted of anything. Apparently, there's been no criminal prosecutions. Well, that's, innocent until proven guilty in my world. He voices opposition to climate rules and calls the Green New Deal resolution a socialist takeover. So my view is that the climate holocaust, completely human caused, and many other environmental catastrophes that we're facing, the ever less wild spaces, the ever smaller amount of wild spaces we have, the great extinction, which is driven in part but not in total by the climate catastrophe. These are all existential issues that we must address. But my biggest belief in terms of addressing the climate holocaust is, rather than having a bunch of government rules and government picking winners and losers, which is what the Green New Deal does, I think we should have the market choose winners and losers by imposing an ever-growing, ever higher fossil fuels tax. The fossil fuels, burning fossil fuels, is what's brought us to where we are. And only by stopping that process can we get back to a sustainable environment, sustainable planet. And the way you stop people from burning or stop people from consuming anything is you raise the price. You make it more expensive to do something you don't want people to do, especially if they're doing it for economic reasons, right? You make a calculation. I want to get eggs. So we're talking about eggs. I got to go to the store. What's the best way for me to do it? Well, I'll get in my car. I get there in 5 minutes. I come home another 5 minutes later. It took me 15 minutes to get the eggs. And then I go back to work, or I have time to do other things. And it doesn't cost me very much to drive my car. But when it starts costing you $5 to drive 5 miles, then maybe you don't drive, right? Maybe you say, you know what? It's not worth it to me to spend $10 to go to the store and back for some eggs. That will also set me back $2, $3, $4, whatever the dozen eggs cost you. Maybe you make a decision, I'm going to walk. I'm going to ride my bike. Or I'm only going to get those eggs when I'm going by the market on my way to work or on my way home from work. I'm going to reduce, because driving your vehicle, burning fossil fuels, is always an economic decision. It's an economic choice. If you make the cost more expensive, you will burn less carbon-based energy. It's just that simple. So I don't totally disagree with Gates here. Why do we need all these fancy, markets and secondary markets where you can buy credits to burn fuel? You can sell your credits. That's all a load of crap. The answer is the government taxes the gasoline at the pump and keeps making it more expensive. The answer is the government taxes coal at the power plant. The answer is that if you frack, I think fracking should just be banned. That I would make illegal. But if you frack, another way you could do it, which would also work, is you frack, you got to pay for all that fresh water that you're consuming. And all the gasoline, all the natural gas that goes in the atmosphere, you got to pay for all of that. And plus, you're not going to be able to make very much on it because we're going to charge $20 per square foot or whatever however they sell natural gas. I think it is by the foot, by the BT, whatever it is. I don't know, BTUs, or I don't even understand all that. But smarter people than I can price it. All right, 240-242-5646. Yeah, FTC does antitrust. Thanks, Emogi. Yeah, I got that. Sorry, folks. Do my best to get everything right, but you can't do that. So I don't think Gates is totally wrong. And to the extent he wants to have market-based solutions to this problem, I'm with him. Yeah, let's raise the price. That's a market-based solution. Very, very simple. So I think the Democrats would be, now, of course, they're going to blow it. Of course, they're going to make it political and partisan. But the smartest thing they could do is come out and say, yeah, we think Gates is not a bad choice. That, and certainly in my view. Again, he supports Lena Khan, which is a really good thing. I think, was it AOC who said if Harris gets rid of Lena Khan, there's going to be a ruckus or something. There'll be some problems or something, she threatened. So given that fact, here's why. Here's why Harris would have gotten rid of Khan. Because her brother-in-law, I believe it is, Tony West, who is one of her top advisors, is also an Uber, a board member and general counsel for Uber. And Uber's a monopoly. They're, the Uber, Lyft, right? They're the only two, pretty much. So Khan goes after those bad actors, and they want to get rid of her. Tony West wants to get rid of her. AOC threatened, hey, you better not get rid of Lena Khan. Well, Gates likes Khan. Gates agrees with Khan. So I would hope AOC would be telling her buds in the Senate, you should confirm Gates. I don't know that she will, but she should. Okay, again, big issues. I just want to say, I posted this. Let's see. I posted this about Gates because he's getting just so much hate. And I just care about policy. I don't want to hear all of this, oh, he's a pedophile and he's this and he's that. I care about policy. If he's a pedophile, then the police should arrest him and he should go to jail for that. I'm not saying he should get a pass for that. Of course not. You take advantage of children, you hurt children, you should go to jail. You separate families at the border, you should be prosecuted for that. The Democrats chose not to prosecute Donald Trump for that. That was their decision. You bomb children, you supply weaponry to an army that shoots children in the head and in the chest, you should be prosecuted for that. But no one gives a damn about the Palestinian children, so nothing happens. I care about policy. Gates says there's a scientific consensus that the Earth is getting warmer. I think we should know that. I post that on Facebook. Some people don't want to hear anything that isn't totally negative about a Republican. So I hear from them on social media, and here's what they said as criticism in response. He's one of the biggest MAGA and Trump stooges. He doesn't get a pass just because he realizes or admits something we've all known for decades now. Okay, no one said he gets a pass. I said, no one's giving him a pass. This is a corrective to all the negative coverage. And then, the response to that, I hate to tell you this, but his own party gives him negative press too. He's not a team player. I don't want team players. I don't want people who are going to go along with what their party wants. That's got us to where we are. I want people who are going to stand up to their team. To me, it's a positive that the Republicans don't like Gates. All right, let's move. We already talked about Hegseth. Again, sort of a mixed bag. Not all bad with Hegseth. Not all bad. There's this guy, I think it's Doug, is that right? Doug Burgum, who's governor of North Dakota. and Trump's pick for the Department of Interior, Secretary of the Department of Interior. This guy, again, somewhat of a mixed bag. Doesn't come from the oil and gas industry. He was a entrepreneur, Silicon Valley tech guy, tech bro. When one of these libertarian types, doesn't like government. When he took office, he said we should strive to be carbon neutral in North Dakota by 2030. That is not what you'd expect the governor of an oil, gas, and coal state, which North Dakota is all of those. That is the last thing you'd expect the governor of a state, a red state, an oil, gas, and coal state, to say we should be carbon neutral by 2030. Now, I want to be real clear. Carbon neutral ain't nearly good enough, right? I mean, we already are, our planet's already way too hot. There's already far too much CO2 in the atmosphere. And carbon neutral is kind of a crock, because what he's saying is we need to figure out ways to sequester the carbon dioxide that we generate from burning fossil fuels, from our fertilizers, from, the cows, the cow flatulence, all that. We've got to figure out a way to sequester the CO2 that we generate. That's not a solution. But even just bringing it up, even just saying it, is not what you'd expect. Now, no passes. I'm just bringing up the fact that these appointees to date aren't as bad as they could be. Now, Burgum has shifted away. Now, you see the article there from the Daily Climate. Shifts from green policies to pro-oil stance. Now, I wouldn't have ever said he was green, but they're not the worst, right? That's the point. And this is from that article, which is accurate because I did some other research. I didn't rely only on the Daily Climate. I don't know what the Daily Climate is, by the way. I really don't. I don't know what their views are. But as I mentioned, and this was, he said this in Farms Forward magazine, that he wanted a carbon neutral state. But he also has been pro fossil fuel industry. And then Scott Skokas, who's from the Dakota Resource Council, it's not that he's changed his views, but he's an opportunist. So who does that sound like? I was like, oh, you mean Kamala, right? Remember she was anti-fracking before she was pro-fracking, or she was pro-fracking and then she's anti, whatever she is, she's all in for fracking. So that's what you see. That's who politicians are. But it's all relevant because if you're going to sit here and demonize Trump and you're going to say, if you voted for Trump, you sold your daughter, then you have to reckon with the fact that the people he's nominating for these positions are basically, in the range. They're basically not necessarily any worse than who the Democrats have put in power. They just aren't. I mean, I understand you want to believe that, and I could be totally wrong, but the evidence doesn't bear out Trump is some sort of terrible, extreme right-wing disruptor who's going to completely, push us in a direction that we would have never gone otherwise. Okay, there's someone who's an opportunist right there. That's all. And why? Why is she an opportunist? Well, it's just flat out false, what she says. We can grow and we can increase a clean energy economy without banning fracking. Okay. So that is a terrible statement in so many different ways. The reason for a fracking ban isn't to promote growth. The reason for a fracking ban is to save the planet. The reason for a fracking ban is because we don't have enough fresh water. It's not so you can grow. And it's also not to increase a clean energy economy. In the end, the reason that's kind of true, I guess, but really it's just to stop burning fossil fuels. So yeah, have a clean energy economy, but the goal is to stop burning fossil fuels. That's a clean energy economy. So you can't have a clean energy economy with fracking, period, end of story. So, but that's Harris's view. So according to, Shade, your solutions always hurt the lower classes the most. Green solutions often cost lots to develop. Well, the reason that's why you need to raise the price of fossil fuels, because, fossil fuels are cheap. It took millions and hundreds of millions of years for all those plants and other biolife to be compressed into energy, right? That took a long, long, long time for all that biolife to become carbon fuel. Incredibly compressed, incredibly powerful, incredible amounts of calories per ounce. So that's why you got to raise the price of it. Now, I agree that would, of course, hurt poor people, struggling people, working people, because they pay a higher percentage of their wealth and income on energy than rich people do. That's why, and I guess I should have said this, I guess I have to say it, every single time you raise the price with a tax, you return the money that's collected, the revenues collected to poor, struggling, and working people. You just simply rebate it. You send it back. Not based on how much each consumes, but based on how everyone gets the same amount back. And since poor people consume less in total, absolutely, than rich people, they'll get more back than they spend, and they'll be better off. It will be a progressive tax. 240-242-5646. So just to completely put a bow around this whole issue of energy and why you cannot conclude at this point with any real confidence that the Trump admin would be even worse, and I say it that way deliberately, reason you cannot conclude with any confidence that Trump admin would be even worse than Harris Biden is for this very reason. The president, Biden, has overseen the largest oil boom the U.S. or the world has experienced. At a time when global temperatures have never risen at a faster rate, this president has overseen the largest oil boom the U.S. or the world has ever experienced. So you just cannot conclude, it's not reasonable to conclude based on that fact, based on the fact that the candidate for president backtracked on anti-fracking legislation, claimed that you could have a clean, green economy while fracking, and insisted that she agreed with every single thing Joe Biden had done. You cannot conclude that this administration will be worse on the environment than Harris Biden. All right, let's see. 240-242-5646. 240-242-5646. Just real quick on that whole issue again of the carbon tax and why there is a chance. Now, I believe the Washington Post has periodically fitfully called for a carbon fossil fuels tax. They actually agree with me on this. And it looks like there might be some. Now, I'm sure this is pure wishful thinking on my part. But you have these people, Gates, he's kind of a libertarian. He doesn't trust government. Same with Burgum. Same, by the way, with RFK. They all hate government. And a tax is government, but it's far less intrusive government than the Green New Deal, than having, secondary energy markets and the like, which is what you need, trading credits, pollution credits and the like. That's another way to try to reduce consumption, but it's far more onerous, far more expensive than taxing the fuel. So again, just back to Burgum, the North Dakota governor who will be nominated for Department of Interior by Trump. He says he wants the state to become carbon neutral. He says it's not a government initiative and it's not what other states are doing. He's just calling on farmers to be good. Now, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's a joke. Obviously, you're not going to stop burning carbon, you're not going to become carbon neutral unless it's in your interest to be carbon neutral. If it's cheaper for a farmer to drive gasoline-powered machinery, they're going to do it. If it's cheaper for a farmer not to worry about the flatulence of their cows, they're not going to worry about it. It's only when you price it that it makes a difference. But if you have a guy who at least acknowledges that this is a worthy goal, a worthy aspiration, then I don't know. Maybe you persuade them that the best way, the least intrusive way to jumpstart that transition is simply by making the price of fossil fuels more expensive. It's certainly the simplest solution. So it should appeal to those who don't want big government. All right. I think I'm past my hour. Well past. I told you I was going to go through the hour, but I'll just real quick give you on RFK Jr. So he's a crank. He's a kind of a nut. But the one sort of, I guess, silver lining to the RFK Jr. cloud, as far as I know, and I may be wrong on this, I don't think he really is in any way connected to or tied in to big pharma and the for-profit healthcare industry. I don't believe he is. So to the extent, and he has been critical of them, so to the extent he's willing to take on these entrenched interests, that's good. That's what we need. We'll see if it happens. I'm very skeptical. RFK Jr. is wrong on so much. He's a crypto kook. He's says that he doesn't want climate solutions to increase government power, when in fact it's the climate catastrophe that has led us to a point of where there's tyranny by governments, by militarists. I don't love the RFK Jr. pick whatsoever, but I wouldn't want someone who's tied into big pharma or the for-profit healthcare industry either, in any way. And I would assume that's who we would get with Kamala. That's who Dr. Fauci is. I mean, he's long history, in and out of the going back and forth, revolving door. I don't know who is the Health and Human Services Secretary for Biden, so I can't compare. Maybe they were really good. I don't know. So that's not going to be instructive. I'll look up their name real quick, but I don't know. The point I'm making is that we need to be at least somewhat Xavier Becerra. So Xavier Becerra, as I understand, was pretty good. I don't believe he was part of that revolving door. I think he came from Congress, right? He was a congressman from Arizona. Is that right? I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. And I think that, he did his best, but it's tough. It's a tough job. I'm not optimistic about RFK Jr. I'm certainly trying to be as fair and as open-minded and also not have any kind of rose-colored glasses. I think that the corporate media, the elites, the liberals have just completely turned Trump into a pariah, into evil. I've heard people say, I hate him. Oh, yeah, he was Attorney General of California. Sorry, folks, not Arizona. But, neighboring state. So, yeah, Becerra was a good pick. I like him. I don't know what good he was able to accomplish, but, maybe RFK Jr. will somehow take on big pharma. I would be shocked. He probably won't get even. There's a very good chance he won't get confirmed. But if Democrats want to say to Trump, hey, we'll work with you, I would certainly say Gates would be a better choice than RFK Jr. for Democrats to take a stand that is, that would support a Trump pick. All right, that's going to do it for me. Great to hear from Chris. Love to see the comments in the chat. Have an awesome weekend. I will be back on Monday.